Jesus plus nothing. 100% natural, no additives. Andrew Farley is celebrating your freedom in Christ. Call in and ask your questions at 877-655-6755. That's toll free at 877-655-6755. Via satellite from Texas, it's The Grace Message with Dr. Andrew Farley.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to The Grace Message. I'm Andrew Farley. So glad you're joining us tonight. That number, 877-655-6755. We do have an open line or two, room for you to get in with your question tonight. Maybe you've got a question about a scripture passage or a personal problem going on in your life right now, in your marriage, with your kids, whatever it may be. You're welcome to join us here at The Grace Message. And if you don't get in with your question tonight, of course, we always invite you to go to our web resources, which can be found at andrewfarley.org. Again, that's andrewfarley.org. And don't forget about BibleQuestions.com. My goodness, what a great resource. People are asking questions about salvation and suicide and marital issues and all kinds of things at 2 and 3 o'clock in the morning. My goodness, they have nowhere else to go, and BibleQuestions.com is there for them. And we're so glad, we're so grateful to God for this new resource. If you have not checked it out yet, it is called BibleQuestions.com, where you can get your answers to your questions in 10 seconds or less in 95 languages. Are you kidding me? 95 languages around the world. We have people asking questions and getting answers in Mandarin Chinese, in Arabic, in all kinds of languages, German and Russian and Spanish and Portuguese and so many other languages. What a mission. What an amazing tool. Check it out at BibleQuestions.com. But right now, we're going to go out to Oklahoma, and we'll talk with Calvin. Hey, Calvin, what do you got for us tonight?
Hey, Dr. Farley. Thank you, first of all, for allowing me to talk with you again. I usually get in 90% of the time, so I thank God for that.
Good.
My question is, if you remember me, I'm the young man that lost his mother a month or so ago.
Yes.
And I wanted to ask you something that would really critically help me.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, since then, I've been trying to keep the faith and to follow the path that the Lord has set me on. And as of lately, I haven't been engaging into temptation, but I have been tempted by certain things. Mm-hmm. And I believe I have allowed myself to get tempted by certain things, but not engaged. And I was just wanting to know, how do I get away from that? Because I know by being a follower of Christ that you are not supposed to entertain certain things or do certain things to that nature.
Yeah.
But I really don't want to do them at all. It's more like it was a habit before. Mm-hmm. And, you know, the question or the phrase that idle mind is the devil's workshop. Mm-hmm. And I don't want him operating in my head. And I'm really serious about, you know, following Jesus, but I want to do it the right way and the way that is best pleasing to him. And I'm not lost, but I'm just trying to move away from that. I don't want to be like that, and I don't want to even think like that.
Okay. Yeah, I hear you, Calvin. Well, thanks for trusting us with your question tonight. I mean, first, if it's of a sexual nature, which I imagine it is, it seems like that's what you're talking about. You have pornography that's a temptation for many males, Christian males, unbelieving males. It doesn't matter. It's still an issue because, we're physical creatures. So let's separate the physical act from the sinful act. There are two different things going on there with masturbation and pornography. One is definitely mentioned in the Bible and the other is not. That is that pornography is lust, which is sin, and that's clear. Now, you got Christian counselors around the world that will debate the idea of masturbation and whether the physical act alone is wrong or not. I remember, there's some well-known, I won't mention names, I won't speak for them, but some well-known family counselors and biblical teachers and scholars and lots of counselors that are on the airwaves and write books. And, some of them argue, I think quite well, that there's nothing wrong with the physical cycle of the male sexually. It's just when all of that is mixed with pornography and lust and sin. So that's what we want to avoid. You're always going to be a male. You're always going to be attracted to the opposite sex. But what is really disturbing you is when, those sexual needs are met in a sinful way. So let's talk about temptation and lust and pornography and sin for just a little bit. And it doesn't matter exactly what your struggle is, but these concepts will certainly help anybody with temptation. So first, I think you need to know that your heart hates sin. And that's why you hate the idea of engaging in pornography and sexual lust and giving in to sexual temptation. It's because you are a different person now. If you're born again, if you have a new heart, a new spirit, and God's Spirit inside of you, then it's not just God that is calling you out saying, hey, Calvin, you really need to stop this. Sure, the Spirit of God is counseling you, of course. But my point is that it's also you. It's also you that hates the sin. That's what the Bible means when it says we are dead to sin and alive to God. So when the thought comes, how about we just talk about pornography as an example? When the sexual lust thought comes to the forefront of your mind and the idea of engaging in pornography, for example, when it hits your mind, you have a choice. You're going to either think, this is me and this is what I want and this is what I'm going to do, or you could have the spiritual thought of, actually, this didn't come from me. It sounds like me and it feels familiar, and yes, it's in my head, but this is not from me, and I reject this thought. I count myself dead to this thought. I say no to sin, and I say yes to who I really am. And so, there's a lot of, obviously, we could get into what pornography is, the way that it objectifies women in a very sinful way. Women become property. This becomes about dominance and power and all of that. Though all of those things are the thoughts that grip us and cause us to get mired in temptation. So, the answer to that is really to know who you are in Christ and to say, I'm not about this. I'm above sin. Sin is beneath me. I don't think about women in that way. That's not who I am. God, I want to honor you with my body. I present my body to you. I'm a slave of righteousness. I belong to you. I've been bought with a price. You own me. And not only do you own me, Lord, but you've transformed me. You've given me a new heart, a new set of desires. I don't even want that stuff. I know the world is trying to tell me that I want that stuff, but, I do it for 5 minutes or 5 times or 50 times, and every time it's like frustrating. I'm miserable. I could say with Paul, miserable man that I am, right? So, Calvin, I think that train of thought that I just exemplified for you is the way forward when temptation hits. I'm dead to sin. I'm alive to God. Sin will never make me happy. It's not who I am. It's not what I'm about. Sin is beneath me. I'm above sin. I'm a slave of righteousness. And it's not just Bible talk. It's not just Sunday morning chatter. I mean, this is where, when you're all by yourself and nobody else is there, you're asking, who am I? And what do I really want? And what makes me tick? And what makes me happy? And what fulfills me? What kind of heart do I have? Who am I spiritually? And where's this thought coming from? Because, see, if the thought is coming from you, well, then you're a goner. I mean, you've already lost. Because who can say no to their very self for 50 or 80 years? I mean, that is an exercise in failure. But that's not what the gospel is. The gospel is you're not saying no to yourself. The gospel says you're the new self. You're a new creation, the new self. And you are saying no to sin. You're saying, I'm not going to let sin reign because I am a new creature. So I'll put you back on and see, does that help make some sense of the choice that you get to make each time?
Yes, it does. And I'm pretty transparent when it comes to that because, Pastor Farley, I'm married. I've been married for 14 years. And, you know, I don't want to be that person, you know. Right. And I want to be a creature that walks in the likeness of Christ, that has a Christ-like mind and characteristics. Yeah. And I know that identifying when a problem arises or you have a problem is first noticing that is a problem. And that is something that I want to flee from, you know, and run away and just turn my back on. And I was just having a little trouble doing that. So it helps me to understand that, you know, it's okay to say no.
Yes,
you know,
yes. It is not, Calvin, let me say this. It's not legalistic to just say no and to rid yourself of any temptation. So if I'm in your shoes, then, you know, I'm careful about what is on my computer, whatever's on my phone, whatever's in my house. You know, you could tell your wife about it. She could, you know, be working with you on this, meaning discussing the issue with you and making sure that there's things in the home that basically make it difficult. I mean, that's not legalism. That's wisdom. And that's what I hear coming out of your mouth right now is wisdom. You're saying, I want to come clean about this. I want to be candid about it. You say admitting the problem is the first step. I mean, you are a sincere and wise man, and all you want is freedom. You don't want this thing to dominate you. So, you know, a word about your wife. So your wife might hear about this, you know, from you or, you know, some other source, but hopefully from you. And she might start feeling things about herself. You know, that's what sometimes happens. The wife will say, well, you know, this makes me feel lesser, or this makes me feel compared, or this makes me feel inferior, or I don't feel, you know, beautiful to you, or whatever. And so it gets internalized and it really becomes hurtful to the spouse, to the wife. And what I would say there is, you know, she's going to have some choices to make to count herself dead to those thoughts. Those are accusatory thoughts and condemning thoughts. It is simply that there's a power called sin that is in the world, and that power is tempting you, Calvin. It has nothing to do, I mean, your wife could be the most beautiful woman on the planet. And you could love her to the moon and back. And yet there's this power called sin that wants to try to control you. So what I'm saying is you and your wife need to be on the same team. And when she realizes that this is not about your love for her, this is not a quantifier or a measurement of your love for her, this is really just an indicator that we have an enemy. And the power of sin is your common enemy. You and your wife share that same enemy. So you guys need to join forces, recognize the enemy, take some steps together, and she can be in your camp. She can be on your team helping you as you think through this and as you respond. So there's nothing legalistic about preparing for victory and making some choices that are common sense, godly wisdom. If you line up 100 Christians and they're all righteous and they're all holy and they're all blameless and they're all children of God, what's the difference? Well, the difference is choices that we make that affect our experience. And that's just the bottom line. We live on planet Earth, and we make choices every day. So you've seen the choice before you. It's easier, it's just a fraction easier to choose when you realize that thought didn't come from me. I'm a child of God. I'm dead to sin. That thought didn't come from me. I'm counting myself dead to it. I'm ignoring it. I'm fixing my eyes on Jesus. And yes, I'm a sexual creature, but I happen to be married. And isn't that awesome? So I'm going to go develop my healthy relationship with my wife. And you know what? That's why God gave us each other. So Calvin, thanks again for your question, and reach out to us again anytime. All right, well, let's go now to, how about Canada, and we'll talk with Trevor. Hey, Trevor.
Hey, Andrew.
Hey.
How you doing today?
Hey, I'm doing good. What's on your mind tonight, Trevor?
Well, I've been struggling in my relationship. My wife and I have had some pretty brutal arguments, and there has been some physicality involved from both sides. And this last time, I was kicked out of the house, and then the church kicked me out. But I've repented from the heart of all those things, and I've gone to her and expressed my sorrow for having done those things, and that it's more than just me being an abuser or whatever she hurls at me in terms of condemnation. And so I don't know, as I deal with her now, and I don't mean deal with her in a bad way, but as I'm interacting with her, there's still that spirit of resentment and holding on to a record of wrongs, and I'm trying really hard to let love cover a multitude of offenses, and because she's also offended me in many ways, even in that instance. But I just don't know the way forward, really.
So you guys have hit each other?
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot? 5 times,
no,
10 times?
No, she initiated physical violence toward me this last time, and then I was asking her to back off and to leave me alone and not engage with me, and she just wouldn't listen, and I just snapped, and I smacked her on the side of her thigh.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that was totally wrong, and in that moment I totally gave myself over to a lack of self-control, and I recognize that, and I've expressed that to her, but there's just this spirit of resentment and hatred toward me.
Okay. And have you guys, how new is this? How recent is this? And have you gotten any counseling at all?
Well, she doesn't want to talk about our relationship at all. I keep trying to ask for us to go and do that. And
so when did this happen? When did the violence happen?
A month and a half ago, almost 2 months now, I guess.
And is she considering divorce? Is that where she's headed, or?
No, she says we're separated, and she says she wants to work on herself and me to work on myself, and I don't really know what she means by that, but I expressed to her that I am working on myself, and I'm seeking counsel and godly counsel, and I'm praying lots about it, and I'm going to go and see a counselor here on Wednesday about all of that.
So then, if you could summarize, what is your question for me? It's good that you're getting counseling. It's great, and that you're both taking time to kind of work through some things in your own mind and taken some time apart, given what's happened. But what would be your number one question for me tonight?
How do I contend with this spirit of resentfulness and holding on to a record of wrongs?
Yeah. Okay. All right, Trevor. Well, first, I don't think that you want to refer to it that way. It's not just a spirit of resentfulness. It's a woman who's been slapped, a woman who's been, abused verbally, physically a bit, at least on one occasion that you told me about, maybe more. So I think you guys, this idea of getting some space and living in separate homes or places and getting counseling, I mean, I candidly think you're exactly where you need to be at this very moment. I mean, you can't just throw yourselves back under the same roof and say, okay, I forgive you, you forgive me, ready, go, because, we're humans and we have these feelings and we got to work through them. And right now, neither you nor she has gotten any systematic counseling, some sort of systematic help, meaning, going to the same person 5 or 6 times, talking through everything that's happened, how it made you feel, what forgiveness looks like, walking through that process, forgiving each other eventually when we actually understand what we're doing, talking about communication, learning some new things about communicating together. If you get back under the same roof and you're still talking the same way, you're going to end up the same way again. So I think that's what she means by time apart and time working on herself and all of that. What she's trying to say is that you need to figure out some better communication, how to talk to her in a healthier way, and she needs to do the same, because here's what happens. Bottom line, we enter into marriage and he thinks she's going to be beautiful and wonderful and supportive and a cheerleader and, support him in everything he does. And, it's going to be wonderful. And she's going to make him feel amazing. And then, again, they get married. And she thinks, well, this is my knight in shining armor. He's always going to be thinking of me and the little things, taking care of everything, making sure that I'm comfortable and happy and fulfilled, and he's just going to be sensitive and a great listener, and he's going to open the car door for me, and he's going to think of all my feelings, and he's going to get to know me so well that he's going to be practically a mind reader because he knows me so well. And so she, any woman may find, I'm just saying may, find themselves with some sort of expectations. Maybe not all of those, but some of those. And then the man, definitely, I can tell you as a man, we go into marriage and we just think, wow, this person's going to be my number one cheerleader, and they're just going to make me feel awesome all the time. And they're just going to provide warmth and love and forgiveness and grace and kindness and loveliness all the time, and going to meet my needs, and it's going to be the perfect helpmate, and she completes me, all that stuff that you hear. And then lo and behold, we're both human, and so then we get upset that the other person doesn't meet our needs, and then we try to get even, and we start trying the court case, and she's a trial lawyer and you're a trial lawyer, and you present your evidence, and the goal of communication is to win. Well, when everybody's trying to win, the marriage loses. So I just described the core issue, most likely. The core issue is unrealistic expectations and needs that are not met. And then there's hurt and anger and communication that feels like a courtroom with evidence. So that's where you want to dive into our resources. The Hurt and the Healer book would be a great help. And get that counseling. It's going to be
For
great.
more information on the broadcast ministry of Dr. Andrew Farley, please visit andrewfarley.org. That's andrewfarley.org. Join us next time as we invite you to celebrate the grace message with Dr. Andrew Farley. This program is sponsored by your generous financial support.